Guys, it is the 23rd of No, it is the 22nd of December. I got that very wrong. Okay, starting again. It is the 22nd of December. It's like so close to Christmas. I can like smell it, taste it, whatever. I'm really excited. It's only a few days away. So I'm doing like those videos at the moment where you do like the best books of 2018 or the most anticipated books of 2019 and those big wrap up things. And based on the fact you clicked on this video, I'm assuming that you know that this is the best books of 2018. So I guess we should probably get going. My favourite book, or one of my favourite books, all of these are like one of my favourite books, but I loved The Corset by Laura Purcell, and I adored her writing in The Silent Companions last year. In fact, I think that was one of my very top reads of 2017. So like, well done Laura, you've got on my top books 2 years in a row. Not many authors do that. And also it's adult fiction, which like is so rare for me, but this is another element of like awesome gothic fiction that is just so good. To give you a little bit of backstory, this book is set from dual perspectives. We have Dorothea and we have Ruth, and Dorothea is like one of those really spoiled, well-to-do girls who is gonna be like married off to a husband, and then we have Ruth who is downtrodden. Her mum like sews for a living and she helps her out, and she can't even stay in school because they're so poor. So they're from very different points in life, or very different standards in life. And I don't want to go into any of these books in too much detail, but what I will say is this book has intrigue, it has death / murder. The whole premise of the book is that Dorothea is coming to Ruth in her cell and is trying to help her understand what has happened in her life, and has like helping her to come to terms with what she's done ahead of her trial and her conviction and potentially her hanging. Obviously you have to question as the reader, you know, did she do it? Did she do it but she was led to do it? Did someone else do it and they framed her for it? But it's not just like a murder mystery book, because I don't really like those. This is very much magical gothic fiction, I would say. The magic is more of a psychological, and you'll know what I'm meaning if you've watched if you've read even The Silent Companions. It very much has that like magically element to it. Without being magical, it is very much psychological, but you think it's magical, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I'm definitely babbling, so yeah. Long story short, this is one of my favourite reads of this year, and you should definitely check it out for next year. Okay, next on the list is Onyx and Ivory. A lot of the books that I love this year are like YA fantasy, which is like no surprise to any of you because it's like my favourite genre. So yeah, Onyx and Ivory by Mindy Arnett. I actually got a pre-release copy, one of my favourite pre-release copies of this year, but it was out in summer, so loads of you will probably have read it now. The premise of this book is that traitor Kate used to live in the stables with her father, who was the king's farrier as far as I remember, but I did read this like in springtime, so I might be wrong in that point. And Kate is called Traitor Kate because her father tried to kill the king. That is not okay. Anyway, it's your very typical like girl gets pushed out into exile by the royal family and then somehow comes back into contact with the royal family, and lo and behold, she used to be friends with the prince when she grew up as a servant there, because that really happens. Anyway, I find these sort of setups and tropes really common in YA fantasy, but it doesn't mean I like it any less when it's done really well. And there is a really good, like, I'm gonna say for all of you like classic YA readers, a really good Hunger Games type battle in this. And it's just like, you cannot not read this. You cannot. If you are a fan of YA fantasy fiction, you need to read Onyx and Ivory. Next one, I found some self-published Most Beautiful Fae Nurse in A Kingdom of Exiles by, who is it, by SB Nova. She's only released 2 books so far. This is the first one in a series, and she also did Draken. I loved this book so much. I remember being so upset when I found out that the second book in the series wasn't out, and then I contacted her on Instagram and I was like, when is it coming out again? And she was like, oh, maybe in a year's time, and it's just dawned on me that maybe this is coming out soon. Actually, I was going to tell you about this book, but I actually can't remember anything about it other than I remember it was one of my favourite Fae reads of this year, which I know is really terrible and I shouldn't recommend books without remembering what they're about, but like, this is really bad. I know that it's like a coming of age Fae book where like the lead discovers powers that she may or may not have, and it's everything you want in a Fae book and everything for Sarah J Maas lovers. Like, you will love this. I need to reread it actually. I love that when you forget everything in a book that you really love and like, you know, you need to reread it. So I need to reread that as much as you guys do. So Enchantment of Ravens is probably my next one by Margaret Rogerson. I love this and I read it in a day. It was obviously one of my favourite reads of last year. I love the front cover for starters, and I actually bought it for the front cover and then I read it and I absolutely adored it. So this is about a girl who lives really close to the Fae realm, and it's like a village where lots and lots of Fae come to have things made of crafts. So this is like a really traditional Fae book in the fact that Fae cannot make things, they cannot they cannot create craft, so they can't sew, they can't paint, they can't create music. They have to rely on humans to do that, and so they quite often make bargains with humans because they don't have money, so they make bargains with humans, which are often end up quite badly for the humans, because we all know that Fae are quite tricksy. Anyway, so our lead character in this book is one of the best painters, and she's renowned within the Fae realm, but she also is quite wise to the Fae tricks, and she's quite clever in the things that she bargains for. So she looks after her family by painting for the Fae. And one day, the Fae Prince of the Autumn realm wanders into her life, and so ensues the rest of the book, which is like a mixture of action, love, heartbreak. It is, again, another everything you want in a Fae book, but it's also really short. So this is like 100% a book that you can just tear through in a day and then have beautifully on your bookshelf. And also, I'm thinking I might read that again too. Like, what is this life? So next book is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. I love this book. I actually did a 24-hour readathon with this book, so I won't go into it in too much detail. But basically, this is about a girl who spent most of her life traveling around with her mum because they never stay in the same place for far too long. Then her mum goes missing, and her grandma, she's never really met, but her grandma dies, and she doesn't know what's going on, but she knows that her grandma wrote this book about the hinterland, and all of these weird and strange things start happening, and it turns out that the hinterland slash the Hazelwood slash all of this stuff may be a little bit true and in the real world, and she has to go and investigate that and find out what's happening. This is fabulous. It's really one to get your brain around all of those little details and all the things that make you want to like literally think you can reach in and touch something in the book or pick it up, or the descriptive elements in this book are just phenomenal, which is surprising considering it's so little. So I would definitely recommend picking this one up. Eleanor Audley is completely fine. I mean, do you really need me to recommend this to you? Because presumably you've probably read it, because it was like one of the most widely mainstream talked about books, I think, of this year, in my opinion, slash probably of last year actually, but I read this quite late. I actually bought this book last year but read it this year, so go figure. Anyway, I did a full video about this book, so if you want to read it, I recommend that you just go and watch my video and then read it. But this, I think my best description of this book is how scrumptiously awkward Eleanor Audley is, and it's all, everything she says is, it's so, all of your insecurities and your weird little mannerisms, she has like everybody's weird mannerisms and insecurities built into one person, and she is so socially awkward. She just really doesn't understand life and human interaction, and it's so fabulously scrumptious from that perspective. But then there's also a deeper psychological battle going on that we don't quite understand until as the book starts to progress. So it is absolutely fabulous, absolutely just, it will keep you wrapped for, well, the length of time that it takes you to read it. I think it only took me 2 days, but I've seen so many non-readers love this book, and if a non-reader loves it, I'm gonna say that a reader is just gonna tear through it like that. We got some more Fae, guys. Weirdly, I'm always finding myself searching for more Fae books, yet actually I read a lot of Fae books, so it's like I feel like I can never find them, but actually I seem to have found a lot, so go figure. Anyway, so The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I cannot wait for, I think it's The Wicked King is the next one in this series. Anyway, I have been trying to get an arc of that for forever. I am so excited, but anyway, it's nearly out now, so we're probably okay. But The Cruel Prince is your typical Fae book, however with a slight difference. So this is about two girls who are, one is half Fae from what I remember, and one is human, and they were taken from the human realm to the Fae realm by their father from their mother who was human, and they were brought up in the Fae realm with all of these like Fae princes and all of this, hence the Cruel Prince. And they were brought up in this realm, and they basically like, they get picked on, they're not real Fae, they don't quite work, it doesn't quite fit in, and oh, it's just so good. There are so many bits in this book where I was just sort of like, what are you doing? You're so frustrating, don't do, like, like people that our lead character interacts with, and you're just like, what are you doing? You need to stop, like stop. Anyway, it riled me up a hell of a lot, so I cannot wait for the Wicked King. And the Cruel Prince is just, it's really good. And you also like hate their father, like hate him from the very start. If anyone didn't, like, I don't know what is wrong with you. Next one is Legendary. We all know how much I adored Caraval, so I was obviously gonna like Legendary, and I cannot wait for Finale, who knows how we're all gonna say it next year. Anyway, my biggest bugbear about this book is that the hardback of Caraval is black and white. This is navy and white. Like, you should never mix black and navy, and I know they're separate covers, but it's really annoying to have them next to each other on a shelf. Anyway, so Caraval is basically a world which comes around every so often. It's like a giant fairground is the best way to describe it, but you get invited by a special ticket, and it's, the world takes you over for a week, and there are like, you leave yourself at the door and you just let Caraval take you away. So Legendary is the second time that our lead has gone to Caraval, and it's actually from, there's two sisters, and it's from the other sister's perspective in this one. And she is trying to win Caraval again to find out and save their mother, who we didn't have in Caraval because they've never really, well, they used to know their mother, but then she disappeared. Anyway, you should know that if you've read Caraval. If you didn't, then sorry. Anyway, Legendary is very much like Caraval in the fact that you just, it's another one where the description is just mind-blowing. You soak it all up. It feels like you're at a fairground. It feels like you can taste the cotton candy. Like, every single bit of this book is perfect description that you just cannot stop wanting to read. And that was the same for Legendary. I just loved it. A little bit like apparently the Night Circus, but I'm yet to finish Night Circus. I'm only a couple of chapters in and I keep putting it down, which I kind of feel bad about. Anyway, next one. These are kind of dual because Everless was one of my favourite reads of this year, but then I got a pre-release copy of Evermore. Oh my god, people, like, when I knew that I was getting a pre-release copy of Evermore, I don't think I've ever been that excited for an arc. Like, oh, my absolute babies. I mean, look at how beautiful the covers are. But for anyone who doesn't know, so Everless is about a land called Sempra where you slice your skin and you bleed your blood into coins, and then you pay for stuff. The currency is basically time, so like I will bleed a month into a coin, and then I will buy something with a month or a minute or 10 minutes or an hour, and you're bleeding shorter your life, which basically means that the rich live forever and the poor get even poorer and live for even less and less time. It's pretty hard. And you have a backstory going within there, which is the alchemist and the sorceress, and, or the sorcerer, and oh, it just all comes to light through Everless. And so I don't want to go into Evermore too much for you because I am going to do a full video about these two in about 10 minutes. Actually, I'm going to film it for you, so like look forward to that. But yeah, like just so good, such phenomenal YA fantasy. And then my final one is another pre-release, and the title is actually on the back because it's an arc. And anyway, The Familiars by Stacey Hall. I loved this because I'm assuming a different jacket will be coming out, but I don't think it's even out yet, but I love this book because it's basically set in the it's set in Lancashire, which is where I'm from, in northwest England. It is about the Pendle Witches, which was one of the biggest witch trials I think England ever saw. And it's all about a woman's struggle against powers that be, which basically in those times were men. And it's just, it's such a good like historical fiction, but it doesn't really feel historical in that sense. It's not, I mean, I would say it's not a drag because I don't really like historical fiction, but it basically is, the whole book is this woman trying to basically take a baby to full term, and not having a midwife, and struggling with, am I going to be a good wife? Do I care about my husband? Does my husband love me? Do I even want this life that was forced upon me? And what can I do to help those that have less than me? And what about, I'm imprisoned as a wife, but equally women are being imprisoned as witches, and there's the comparison between the two, and just honestly, it is bloody fantastic. And I say bloody fantastic because I feel like that's like pulling on my Lancashire roots. Anyway, those were some of my favourite books of this year, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was helpful. I hope there were some books in there that you haven't read, or maybe that weren't quite as hyped as other books, because I do try and talk about books that maybe haven't had as much recognition this year, but a lot of these are quite hyped because, like, I do also like the hype, or rather the hyped books, because like sometimes a book is hyped because it's good. I don't know, I'm babbling. Anyway, I will speak to you all soon. Have a fabulous Christmas, or I hope you had a fabulous Christmas, and have a great new year. Thanks, guys.